Okay, we're going to start Unit 2, and this is the Foundations of Government unit. So we got done with Unit 1, which was kind of leading us into the whole idea about what this class is about. Um, what is American government? What is the ideas of government? And now we're going to get more into our government, and we're going to focus into really the key parts about what makes up the United States government. And again, it's vitally important, I feel, that you need to get at least the basics on this to become just aware of what's going on. I'm so tired of having discussions with people who have so little knowledge about how our country is set up, how our country developed into what kind of government we have today, and what is our political nature of who we are as a society. And it shows just a lot of incompetence, stupidity, ignorance on American citizens, and it's just really discouraging. So my goal now is to really get you to understand this a little bit better, so at least you have a good understanding. And more importantly to me is I really want to get you involved into this. I want you, so when you get out of this, you're going to go vote, you're going to participate, you're going to get involved, you're going to have the knowledge, and you're going to have the background of information so that you can make good choices and you can make good decisions on what you want to, how you want to follow the government procedures of life. So we're going to get into the concepts of government, we're going to talk about the documents, and we're going to talk about the establishment of our federal government. So first off, how did we become what we are? Well, of course, we declared independence. The United States, for many, many years, when we first developed into the 13 colonies, way back into American history, which we're not going to get into, basically, you guys know throughout all of your high school and grade school classes you've taken, that we had this huge fight with England over a lot of different things, a lot of different concepts that was building into this big argument and big fight with our mother country. And eventually that led to the Revolutionary War. As the new country, which would become the United States, was kind of in its infant stages there, we had a group of people, which was, our Continental Congress, which was made up predominantly of a lot of the upper class, which we've been also talking about, the more privileged society kind of got this whole thing started. They were tired of having England control their business interests, control their taxes, control their power and their ability to grow and to prosper. And they wanted to strike out on their own. So the Second Continental Congress formulated into an army. Of course, they got George Washington to be the running general. It looked like a long shot. It would be, again, put it in a football analogy terms, you're looking at a football team that would be like a college team winning the Super Bowl. It just would be very unlikely, because we were nowhere in the power structure or the ability of an England to win this thing, and nobody thought it was going to happen, except for the colonists that fought it. During this time, the United States, as we started the Revolutionary War, the Second Continental Congress came together and said, hey, we need to get some men together, the best, the brightest, the smartest around, and get them to write a document called the Declaration of Independence. The purpose of the document, what do we need this thing for? Two things. One was to tell the world why we were breaking away from Britain. That was huge, because there wasn't internet. There wasn't this instantaneous media source out there so the other countries could see this. Now, most of the other countries around the world at the time hated England. They were kind of the big guys on the block that everybody, that picked on everybody. So when this got started, a lot of countries were kind of watching with interest and not really thinking yet that the United States could break away from this mother country, but to at least hurt or damage Great Britain a little bit in their power interest so that they would then be able to rise up a little bit stronger. So that was one of the key reasons. The second was to unite the colonists, because here again, many of the colonists were not backing this thing. A lot of colonists were against it, and a lot of colonists who, kind of got broke into these Tories and into the concept of the Patriots, kind of broke off a little bit. Families divided on this issue of whether to support with England and stay with them or whether to break apart. June 7th, 1776, a committee of five, John Adams, John Thomas Jefferson, Robert Livingston, Roger Sherman, and Benjamin Franklin formed this committee. Now, the guy who's really circle, star, highlight, whatever, is this guy, Jefferson. Mainly, he was the biggest writer, the most influential person of the five. Okay, the other four lended a lot of help, gave a lot of assistance, but he was the key. Where did Jefferson get his ideas from? Three areas. One, John Locke, who we've talked a lot about already, and you have a lot of information about his theories and his idealisms, basically the life, liberty, and property, and the concepts that he had of a government and all that. The Magna Carta, which was an English document that was created way back in the 1200s when King John was around, which basically first gave the people of England their basic rights, the rights of court, the rights of witnessing, the rights of government not being able to take away just any powers you have. Those were all created under this document over in England. So he borrowed from that. He borrowed from Locke, who was already long past dead. And a third person he borrowed a lot from was a French philosopher. His name was Montesquieu. And he believed in this concept of separation of powers. Don't give all your power into one control of one entity. On July 12, 1776, Congress voted and then approved for final passage on July 4th, 1776, the Declaration of Independence. And it was sent out to be read then on July 4th to all the colonies around the area to get people inspired, to get them revved up, to get them wanting to go fight in the war. And it worked. July 17th, Congress orders an official copy to be made, and all of the Continental Congress people and the writers then signed the document. We're going to watch a video about the document tomorrow in class, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Some of the other things about the document, just to finish up with, it does have the basic set of rights put into it: life, liberty, and not property, which is what Locke wanted, but pursuit of happiness. Jefferson changes this, not for plagiarism reasons, but because he didn't want to keep the word property in there because of the fear of slavery. The purpose of government was to protect these rights. Okay, if the government abuses its rights, it's based upon the people's right then to take away the government, if that so happens to take place then. Jefferson then listed 27 abuses that the king and that parliament was doing to the colonists. Not one or two grievances, not one or two bitches here saying, oh my God, the king's just being horrible on us and he's taxing us to death. 27 individual separate things. And you're going to hear those tomorrow, and we're going to kind of go over those a little bit because they're really important, because it really showed that the fact that the colonists weren't just doing this on a quick whim. They have been really planning and thinking this out for many, many months and years then. Finally, after the battle and after the war was done, we're not going to get into that, the United States wins. After the Revolutionary War then, the colonists had to decide, will they stay together? Will they stay as a unified body of what's known as the United States, or will they break off into 13 separate entities? Some of the states wanted to go out on their own. Some wanted to stay together. Finally, they all determined that they needed to stay together because of fear of being taken over by possibly another country, or of England itself coming back after them. So they created a first plan of government called the Articles of Confederation. This was known more as a firm league of friendship. It was a very weak document, a very poor document. It wasn't very created very well. We're going to get more into it tomorrow as well. But the purpose was, what main thing here was to unite for common defense. That's what you want to make sure you get down. Circle, highlight, star, whatever. Unite for common defense. They wanted to stay together so that no country could then come in and take them over. That was the greatest fear after the colonists were able to overthrow England and become an independent country then. So for security, they decided to do this. Also, the second reason was for the general welfare of the people living in that society at the time. The legislative body was a single chamber. Delegates were chosen by the states. Every state, there was 13 of them, of course, had just one vote. So it wasn't like each delegate or each representative got to vote. They would vote as a group, as a body of a state, and then you would have like a 6-7 vote or a 13-0 vote. So it was very hard to get all the states to to get together to get a majority to vote for anything. Had no executive, no president, no judicial branch, no Supreme Court. None of that was in this thing. Allowed states to have absolute power. Very important here. Okay, the Articles was very weak. Very, very weak. It required 9 of 13 states to pass a law, and really the only thing the Articles ever really got done before it was going to be thrown out and redone was it did pass the Northwest Ordinance. I'm sorry. It did pass the Northwest Ordinance, which we're going to talk a little bit about tomorrow. Here is a breakdown of the powers and non-powers of the Articles. And we're going to kind of go through these a little bit more tomorrow in class, but I just want to show them to you now so you can kind of see those. That's going to end the first video here, and then we're going to get into your second video about the setup of the new Congress then and the new system.